Hi, and welcome back to Reddit Terrible Stories. I refused to let my sibling borrow my clothes after they ruined multiple outfits. Before growing up with a younger sister meant my closet was never really mine. On paper, my parents said we each had our own space, our own wardrobes, our own belongings. In reality, though, my sister Riley seemed to believe my closet was an extension of hers. She was 2 years younger, and while we were close in some ways, bonding over late night TV marathons, car rides with music blasting, and mutual hatred of Brussels sprouts. We had a constant battlefield, clothes. It started small. I'd notice a t-shirt missing, one I swore I'd folded neatly on the shelf. Riley would shrug when I asked, then I'd spot her wearing it the next day. Sometimes it came back stretched out, sometimes with a faint makeup stain near the collar, and sometimes it didn't come back at all. But the breaking point didn't come until last year, when she borrowed my favorite dress. Not just any dress, it was a silk, navy blue wrap dress I had saved up for months to buy. I'd worn it once to a friend's birthday party, and felt like it finally gave me confidence I usually struggled to find. Riley begged to borrow it for a school dance, promising she'd be super careful. Against my better judgment, I caved. She returned it with a massive tear across the side seam and an unapologetic shrug. It got caught on a chair or something. Not a big deal. I stared at the rip like it was a wound in my chest. Not a big deal? Riley, this cost me over $100. She rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. Mom can fix it. But Mom couldn't fix it. The silk frayed too easily, and even after her best attempt, it never looked the same again. I had to donate it, and I felt like Riley had just ripped away not just a dress, but the little bit of pride I'd built. And it didn't stop there. She destroyed my jeans by spilling nail polish remover on them. She stretched out a sweater by leaving it crumpled and damp in her gym bag. She accidentally got foundation all over a white blouse. Each time her excuse was the same. It's just clothes. Why are you so uptight? The last straw came on a rainy Saturday afternoon. I was cleaning my room when Riley barged in, her arms crossed, a pout on her lips. Hey, can I borrow your leather jacket tonight? We're going out, and none of my stuff looks right. I laughed sharp, bitter. You're joking, right? She frowned. What? No, you never wear it anyway. Riley, I said slowly, you've ruined nearly everything you've ever borrowed from me. That jacket cost more than 3 of your outfits combined. There's no way I'm letting you touch it. Her face twisted in outrage, as if I just committed a crime against siblinghood. Wow, you're really selfish, you know that? I'm your sister, and I'm not your personal thrift store, I snapped back. That was the first time I ever truly refused her flat out. No compromise, no caving in after guilt, just a solid no. And from the look on her face, you'd think I had set the house on fire. She stormed out of my room, slamming the door so hard, a picture frame rattled off my wall. And I knew in that moment, this wasn't just another petty argument about laundry. This was going to turn into a full-blown war. The next morning, I could feel the tension before I even left my room. Riley was clattering around in the kitchen like she was trying to break every dish in the house. When I walked in to grab some coffee, she didn't even look at me, just muttered under her breath about some people being selfish. I ignored her at first. I'd learned that if you bite every time she baits you, you'll never stop fighting. But it didn't take long before my mom picked up on the chill. What's going on between you two? She asked, eyeing us suspiciously as she poured herself tea. Ask her, Riley said quickly, pointing at me like I was on trial. I set my mug down a little too hard. She wanted to borrow my leather jacket last night. I told her no. That's it. Mom raised an eyebrow. And why did you say no? Because she's ruined half my wardrobe already, I snapped. Do you remember the silk dress? Or the jeans? Or my sweater? Riley gasped, as if I was making things up. Those were accidents. You act like I do it on purpose. You don't have to do it on purpose for it to still ruin my stuff, I shot back. Every time I give in, I regret it. Mom sighed, looking between us like she was weighing whether it was worth intervening. You two need to work this out yourselves. I don't want to referee every clothing dispute. But Riley didn't drop it. Later that day, I overheard her complaining to Dad on the phone loud enough so I'd hear. She's being ridiculous, Dad. She won't even let me borrow a jacket. Who does that to their own sister? That night, she went a step further, posting on Instagram about selfish siblings who hoard clothes like dragons. She didn't mention my name, but everyone who knew us could figure it out. I got a couple of texts from mutual friends asking what happened, some of them clearly amused by her dramatics, others taking her side. That's when it hit me. Riley wasn't just mad, she wanted allies. She wanted to paint me as the unreasonable one, the sibling who broke some unspoken code. The problem was, our family had always had this weird, unspoken expectation that sharing was mandatory. When we were kids, toys had to be shared. When we got older, makeup, jewelry, and clothes seemed to fall under the same rule. I'd gone along with it for years, but I was done letting my sister's recklessness cost me money and peace of mind. Of course, my refusal made me look like I was breaking tradition. At dinner one evening, my aunt casually said, "Riley told me you wouldn't lend her anything anymore." "That doesn't sound like you. You've always been so generous." I clenched my jaw. Generous doesn't mean stupid. I've learned my lesson. Riley smirked across the table, like she was proud of planting seeds in the family grapevine. That night, I sat in my room thinking. Saying no had felt good, empowering even. But it was also drawing battle lines, not just between me and Riley, but between me and the family's expectations. And as much as I hated to admit it, I had a feeling the real fight hadn't even started yet. I thought Riley's petty posts and pointed comments at family dinners were bad enough, but she wasn't done yet. A few days later, I came home from class to find my closet door wide open. My heart sank immediately because I knew I had shut it that morning. Sure enough, one of my favorite tops, a cream-colored blouse I had bought with my own paycheck, was missing. "Riley!" I yelled, storming into her room. She was sitting on her bed, scrolling through her phone, wearing my blouse. "Oh, this?" she said casually, tugging at the hem like it was no big deal. "Relax, I'll give it back." "Are you serious right now?" My voice cracked with anger. "I told you, you don't get to borrow my stuff anymore." She rolled her eyes. "It's just clothes. Stop being so dramatic." I wanted to scream. Instead, I ripped open her closet door and found several more of my pieces shoved in among her things, jeans, sweaters, even a pair of shoes that I'd wondered about for weeks. "Unbelievable," I muttered. Riley jumped up, trying to block me. "Hey, don't go through my stuff." "Don't steal mine, then," I shot back. Of course, our yelling brought Mom running upstairs. She separated us like we were little kids again, demanding to know what was going on. "She's taking my clothes after I specifically told her not to," I explained, shoving the blouse in Mom's direction. "She doesn't respect boundaries." Mom rubbed her temples like she had a migraine. "Riley, is this true?" Riley pouted, her go-to defense. "I just borrowed a couple of things." She's acting like I burned her closet down. But instead of grounding her or siding with me, Mom sighed and said, "Look, both of you need to calm down. Riley, you should ask before taking things. And you," she pointed at me, "you could try being more flexible. She's your sister, not a stranger." I couldn't believe it. More flexible? I'd already been flexible for years. And look where it got me: stained, ripped, or mysteriously missing clothes. That night, I sat in my room feeling furious, but also defeated. If even my mom thought I was overreacting, then maybe Riley thought she was justified. Maybe she thought she was entitled. The next morning, Riley strutted out in another one of my jackets, one she had clearly taken after our fight. She grinned at me like she was daring me to say something. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about clothes anymore. This was about control. Riley was testing me, pushing to see how much she could get away with. And if I didn't push back harder, she was never going to stop. So I came up with a plan. I would lock my closet. The idea felt both childish and drastic, but at this point, it was the only way to guarantee my stuff stayed mine. I ordered a small padlock and latch online, and while I waited for it to arrive, I started hiding my most expensive clothes in a duffel bag under my bed. When Riley saw me carrying the bag one evening, she smirked. "What, are you moving out? Or just building a bunker for your precious clothes?" I ignored her, but inside I was seething. She thought this was a joke. She thought she could humiliate me and still get her way. But the thing about Riley? She hated being told no. And once she realized she couldn't get into my closet anymore, I knew she was going to explode. The war was only beginning. War. The day the padlock arrived, I felt a strange mixture of triumph and dread. Triumph, because I was finally taking action to protect my things. Dread, because I knew exactly how Riley would react. I waited until she was out with her friends before drilling the small latch into the frame of my closet. The metal clinked softly as I slid the lock into place, and I couldn't help but smile at the sound. It felt like freedom, finally, a barrier between Riley and my belongings. That evening, I tested the lock 3 times before going downstairs for dinner. Riley hadn't noticed yet, and for a brief moment, I felt almost giddy at the thought of her frustration when she realized she was shut out. It didn't take long. The next morning, I woke to the sound of rattling. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but then I heard the unmistakable click and tug of metal being jostled. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, and there was Riley, crouched in front of my closet like a burglar, yanking at the lock. "What are you doing?" I snapped. She whipped around, eyes wide with fury. "What the hell is this?" "It's called a lock," I said coldly, climbing out of bed. "Since you can't respect my boundaries, I had to make some." Her face turned red. "You're insane. Who locks their closet in their own house?" "Someone who's tired of their stuff being stolen," I shot back. She stomped her foot like a child. "This is so unfair. Mom's going to freak when she sees this." "Go ahead, tell her. I don't care." Riley stormed out, slamming my door so hard the frame rattled. I half expected her to run straight to Mom, but instead she gave me the silent treatment for the rest of the day. The silence wasn't peaceful, though it was dangerous, like the pause before a storm. Sure enough, 2 days later, I discovered her revenge. When I went into the laundry room to grab my clothes from the dryer, I found them already pulled out and dumped in a wrinkled heap on the floor. Sitting on top of the pile was one of my sweaters, wet, stretched, and ruined. "Riley!" I shouted. She appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, smirking. "Oops. Guess I didn't know that sweater wasn't supposed to go in the dryer. My bad." "You did this on purpose," I said through clenched teeth. "Maybe," she said sweetly. "But maybe if you weren't so selfish with your stuff, accidents wouldn't happen." I was shaking with rage. "You're out of control." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You started this war, not me." Her words echoed in my head for hours after. I wanted to scream at her, to tell Mom and Dad everything, to make her pay somehow. But I also realized something important. Riley wasn't just being petty anymore. She was escalating. If I didn't stand my ground now, she was going to keep pushing until she completely broke me down. So I doubled down. I moved my duffel bag to a locked trunk and hid the key. I refused to leave laundry unattended. And most importantly, I didn't back down when she glared at me across the dinner table. It felt exhausting, like every day was a battle, but there was no way I was letting Riley win. What I didn't know was that her next move wouldn't just target my clothes. She was going to drag the entire family into our fight, and once that happened, there would be no turning back. It started at dinner one night when Riley decided to stage her performance. She sat across from me, arms folded dramatically, sighing every few seconds like she was carrying the weight of the world. Finally, Mom asked, "Riley, what's wrong?" That was all she needed. She launched into a tearful monologue about how I had locked her out and was hoarding my closet. She painted herself as the victim of some cruel sibling oppression. I just wanted to borrow a sweater now and then, but she acts like I'm stealing gold bars or something. She doesn't trust me, and it's tearing our relationship apart. I almost choked on my food. "Are you serious? You've ruined half my wardrobe already." "Accidents happen," she snapped, dabbing fake tears from her cheeks. "But she doesn't forgive me. She treats me like a thief in my own home." Dad put down his fork. "Is this true? Did you put a lock on your closet?" "Yes," I said firmly, "because every time I let her borrow something, it comes back ruined or doesn't come back at all. I've asked her 100 times to stop. She doesn't listen." Riley gasped, like I'd just insulted her in front of the Queen. "See? She's exaggerating. I've returned most of her stuff." "Most?" I laughed bitterly. "Do you want me to start listing everything that's disappeared? Because I can." "Enough," Mom said sharply, her eyes darting between us. "This isn't healthy. We're not going to sit here and argue over clothes." But Riley wasn't done. She leaned forward, voice dripping with poison. "Maybe if she wasn't so materialistic, we wouldn't have this problem." She cares more about her closet than her own sister. My stomach dropped. That was her plan all along, to twist this until it looked like I was the cold, selfish one. I'm not materialistic, I said quietly, though my voice was shaking. I just want my things respected. That's not selfish. That's basic. Dad rubbed his temples. Look, both of you need to figure this out without turning it into World War III. Riley, you need to respect your sister's boundaries. And you, he pointed at me, need to stop locking your closet like you're guarding state secrets. You're sisters, not enemies. Riley shot me a smug grin. To her, Dad's words were a victory. The conversation fizzled, but the damage was done. That night, I heard my parents arguing in their room. Mom was saying something about favoritism and how I was pushing Riley away. Dad muttered something about how we should both grow up. Their whispers made my chest ache. I hadn't wanted this to turn into a family-wide conflict. I just wanted to protect my things. But Riley had pulled everyone else into the battlefield, and now I wasn't just defending my clothes, I was defending my character. The next morning, Riley strutted around the kitchen humming like nothing had happened. She didn't need to say anything. The smirk on her face told me she thought she had won. But I wasn't backing down. If Riley wanted a war, then fine, I'd fight. Only I knew now that it wasn't going to stay between us. The entire family was going to be dragged into this mess, whether they liked it or not. 2 weeks after the family dinner disaster, we had a big family event. Our cousin's birthday party. It wasn't formal, but it was one of those gatherings where everyone brought out their nice, clothes-cute outfits, coordinated shoes, the whole deal. I had picked out a simple but classy dress I'd bought with my own money from working part-time. It wasn't flashy, just a soft lavender color that made me feel confident. On the morning of the party, I went to my closet to grab it. It was gone. My stomach dropped, and I knew instantly what had happened. I yanked open drawers, searched my laundry basket, even checked under my bed, but it wasn't there. The sinking dread twisted into fury as I stormed into Riley's room. And there she was, standing in front of the mirror, my lavender dress clinging to her like it had been made for her. She turned when she saw me in the doorway, and instead of guilt, she smirked. "Doesn't it look amazing on me?" she said, twirling. "You have got to be kidding me," I snapped. "That's mine, Riley. I told you not to touch my clothes." "Oh, come on," she said, rolling her eyes. "It's just for today. You weren't even going to wear it. You're too uptight to let clothes actually live a little." "I literally bought that dress for this party," I shouted. Her face flickered with something like satisfaction, as if she'd planned this. "Well, guess you'll just have to wear something else." We argued, voices rising until Mom appeared at the door, exasperated. She took one look at Riley in the dress and sighed. "Riley, you should have asked first." "She never lets me borrow anything," Riley shot back. "She's acting like I committed a crime." Mom pinched the bridge of her nose. "We don't have time for this. The party's in an hour. Just work it out." Which really meant Riley gets her way again. So I showed up at the party in a backup outfit I didn't even like, simmering with rage. And of course, Riley basked in the spotlight all day. Everyone complimented her on her dress. She soaked it up, flashing me smug glances across the room. But it didn't stop there. During cake, she made a point to sit next to our cousins and say, loud enough for me to hear, "I don't get why she's so possessive about her clothes. It's not like she even wears half of them. Sharing is what family's supposed to do." Some cousins nodded, others stayed quiet, but I felt the heat creeping up my neck. She was painting me as selfish in front of the entire extended family. Finally, one cousin laughed and said, "Yeah, but you've been known to ruin stuff, Riley." Riley gave a fake laugh. "That's just what she says. She exaggerates everything." My hands were clenched into fists under the table. I wanted to stand up and shout the truth, to list every single thing she'd destroyed, but I knew how it would look, me exploding while she stayed calm and collected. She'd win again. When we got home, I ripped the dress off her hanger and stuffed it into my laundry basket. It smelled like perfume that wasn't mine, and when I looked closer, I saw a faint stain on the hem. That was it. That was the breaking point. She thought she could keep taking and taking, embarrassing me, disrespecting me. and that I'd just stay quiet. She had no idea how wrong she was. After the party incident, something inside me snapped. I had put up with Riley's entitlement for years, always trying to keep the peace, always being told by Mom to just let it go. But this time, I couldn't let it go. She had humiliated me publicly, lied about me in front of our family, and ruined the one dress I'd actually been excited to wear. I stared at the faint stain on the hem, running my fingers over the fabric. That dress had cost me 2 weeks of part-time work shifts, and she had treated it like a cheap costume. I realized then that as long as I kept trying to reason with her, nothing would change. Riley wasn't just careless. She thrived on pushing boundaries, on proving she could get away with it. So I decided I needed to take control in a way that would leave no room for argument. First step, protection. I gathered my most important clothes dresses, sweaters, my favorite tops, and moved them into a storage bin I could lock. I found an old padlock in the garage and secured the bin, hiding the key in a place Riley would never think to check. Then I started keeping the bin under my bed. Second step, boundaries. I wrote out a simple rule on a sticky note and plastered it on my closet door. Nothing leaves this closet without my permission. I knew it was petty, but I also knew Riley couldn't stand being denied. It was like she saw every no as a challenge. Sure enough, the first time she tried to borrow something after the party, she stormed into my room to find the bin locked. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, shaking the padlock like it had personally offended her. "It's called protecting my stuff," I said calmly. "You've ruined too many things. This way, we don't have to fight about it anymore." Her face turned red. "You're seriously insane. Who locks up their clothes?" "Someone who's tired of having them stolen," I shot back. She huffed, crossing her arms. "You're making this a bigger deal than it is. You're obsessed." "No," I said evenly. "I'm done being your free closet." The best part was that for the first time, she couldn't do anything about it. She tugged at the lock, cursed under her breath, and eventually stormed out of my room, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. Of course, she didn't stop there. Riley hated losing, and she wasn't about to admit defeat. She started trying new tactics, barging into my room when I wasn't home, digging around my drawers, and even interrogating me about where I kept the key. Once, she cornered me in the hallway and said, "You know, people who hoard things are miserable. Maybe that's why you're always so bitter." I just smiled and walked away. But I knew this was only the beginning. If she couldn't get what she wanted directly, she'd try to make my life miserable in other ways. I had to stay 2 steps ahead. So I started planning. Not just to protect my clothes, but to finally teach her a lesson she couldn't twist around or laugh off. If Riley wanted to play games, I was ready to play too. Only this time, I intended to win. Once Riley realized she couldn't bully me into unlocking my clothes, she changed tactics. Instead of directly stealing from me, she tried to undermine me in every way she could. It started small. She'd accidentally spill juice on my homework, or forget to take the trash out when it was her turn, leaving me to get yelled at. She began dropping little comments in front of our parents, hinting that I was selfish or controlling. "She keeps her closet locked like she's in some spy movie," Riley said one night at dinner, smirking. "I think she's hiding more than clothes." Mom frowned at me. "Is that true? You locked up your things." "Yes," I admitted calmly, "because Riley can't respect boundaries." Dad sighed, shaking his head. "Girls, please, can't you just share like normal siblings?" "There's nothing normal about her paranoia," Riley shot back, glaring at me. I kept my cool, but inside, I was fuming. Riley was clever. She knew how to make me look unreasonable, without anyone noticing her manipulation. If I snapped, she'd win. But I wasn't going to snap. I was going to outsmart her. The final straw came one Saturday afternoon. I had gone to the library to study, leaving my door locked. When I came home, I noticed my desk drawers were slightly open. The bin under my bed was untouched, still locked, but I knew Riley had been snooping. Later that night, I overheard her talking on the phone to a friend. "She thinks she's so smart with that stupid padlock. I'll find the key eventually. She can't keep me out forever." That was it. I realized I couldn't just defend anymore. I needed to go on the offense. So I came up with a plan. The next weekend, I picked out one of my oldest, most worn out tops, the kind Riley would never touch if she thought it was really mine. Then I staged it. I folded it carefully, spritzed it with a bit of my nicest perfume, and placed it right on top of my drawer as if I had just worn it. Sure enough, the trap worked. 2 days later, Riley strutted into the kitchen wearing the top like it was brand new, pretending she had bought it herself. She even bragged about how amazing it fit. I nearly laughed out loud. "Oh, wow," I said casually. "You're wearing that shirt?" She looked at me suspiciously. "Yeah. Why?" I shrugged, fighting to keep a straight face. "No reason. It just looks familiar." She narrowed her eyes but said nothing. Still, I could see the uncertainty creeping in. She thought she had gotten one over on me, but I had just proven how predictable she was. That night, I wrote in my journal, "Step 1 complete. She'll take the bait every time. Now, it's just a matter of setting the right trap." The funny part was that Riley didn't even realize the game had shifted. She still thought she was fighting for control, when in reality, I had already started steering her moves. And I wasn't stopping there. If Riley wanted to keep crossing the line, then I'd make sure the next time she did, it would blow up in her face so big that she wouldn't dare try again. After the shirt incident, I knew Riley couldn't resist temptation. All I had to do was dangle something shiny in front of her, and she'd snatch it without thinking. The problem was, I needed to make sure this time there would be consequences. So I went shopping. Not for myself exactly, but for the perfect bait. At a thrift store downtown, I found a sequined top that looked trendy enough to catch Riley's eye, but tacky enough that I wouldn't actually want it. Best part? It was 2 sizes too small for me, just right for her. When I brought it home, I made sure she saw the bag. I even muttered loud enough for her to hear, "Can't wait to wear this next weekend." Her eyes flickered immediately. Hook, line, sinker. I carefully placed the top in my bin, made a show of locking it, then left for a study group the following evening. I didn't actually go to the study group. Instead, I doubled back and quietly slipped into the guest room down the hall, where I had a perfect view of my bedroom door. It didn't take long. About 15 minutes later, Riley crept upstairs. She thought she was being stealthy, but I saw her slip a bobby pin from her hair and crouch by my lock. Click. Within seconds, she was in my room. My heart raced, but not with anger, with anticipation. I knew she'd go straight for the sequined top. She couldn't help herself. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, she waltzed out of my room with it stuffed under her sweater. The next morning, she appeared in the kitchen wearing it proudly, as if she had just pulled it off a boutique rack. She even posted a selfie on Instagram with the caption, "Feeling fabulous today." Oh, Riley, she had no idea. Because what she didn't know was that I had sewn a little tag inside the shirt the night before. A tag that said, "In permanent marker, property of my name. If found, return immediately." I didn't have to say a word. Within hours, one of our cousins saw her post and messaged me, "Hey, isn't that your shirt Riley's wearing?" I grinned at my phone. "Yep, it sure is." The dominoes began to fall. Soon other friends chimed in, tagging me in her comments. "Wait, isn't this my name's shirt?" Riley panicked. She deleted the post within the hour, but it was too late. The screenshots had already circulated. Our relatives had seen, some of our friends had seen, and the embarrassment on her face at dinner that night was priceless. "Nice shirt," I said sweetly as she stabbed at her mashed potatoes. She glared at me, red-faced, but she couldn't say a word without exposing herself further. I had finally turned the tables. She wasn't just sneaking around behind my back anymore. She was the one being watched, laughed at, and called out. And the best part? She had no clue how far I was willing to go next time. Because this wasn't just about clothes anymore. This was about teaching Riley a lesson she'd never forget. After the Instagram fiasco, Riley retreated. Not physically, she was still in the house, but mentally, she was cautious for the first time in years. I could tell because she stopped barging into my room, stopped accidentally ruining my laundry, and even started asking permission before touching anything that belonged to me. It felt surreal. The following week, I made a decision. I cleared out the bin, keeping only what I truly needed safe under lock and key. The rest of my clothes? I organized neatly back into my closet. But this time, the lock stayed in place. The message was clear. My things were mine, and boundaries weren't negotiable. Riley tested me once, quietly trying to open the bin while I was in the shower. I caught her hand just as it brushed the lock. "Riley," I said calmly, "if you touch that again, there will be consequences." Her shoulders slumped. No snark, no smirk, just a resigned nod. Over time, the tension eased. I realized that Riley's antics weren't just about clothes. They were about testing limits. And once I established clear boundaries, she had no choice but to respect them. It wasn't easy. There were still moments of friction, comments thrown across the room, playful jabs about my paranoid closet habits. But she no longer had the power to hurt me, to ruin my things, or to embarrass me in front of friends and family. One evening, we were watching TV together, and she nudged me with her elbow. "You know," she said quietly, "I guess the lock thing worked. I haven't ruined anything in a while." I laughed softly. "That's because you respect the rules. That's all it took." She grinned sheepishly. "Maybe, but you really went all out." "Yeah," I admitted. "I did, but sometimes you have to be firm if someone doesn't learn the easy way." From that day on, our relationship shifted. Riley stopped taking things for granted. I stopped constantly stressing over whether my favorite pieces would survive another week. And while we still had our disagreements after all, we were sisters. We had finally established a truce, built on respect and clear boundaries. Looking back, I realized that standing my ground wasn't just about clothes. It was about asserting myself, demanding respect, and refusing to let someone else's carelessness dictate my life. I hadn't just protected my wardrobe. I had protected myself. And the best part? I didn't have to apologize for it. Riley still teases me occasionally, but now it's playful, not malicious. I feel confident, in control, and finally able to enjoy my things without fear. I learned that saying no doesn't make you mean, it makes you strong. And in the end, that lesson was worth more than any shirt, jacket, or dress ever could be.